So as you may be aware, over the last couple of weeks I've been really trying to improve my Zerg in StarCraft 2. I've been playing a lot of random over the last couple of months and I realized that my Zerg has been lacking a little bit and my, general skill level had gone down. Now because of that I've been playing it a heck of a lot. I've been playing more StarCraft as of late as I have in a very long time. And today what I want to be talking about is my new Zerg vs Terran strategy while also playing a Zerg vs Terran right here for you. So what I got for you today is going to be the makeover style, I suppose, of my Zerg vs Terran. And the simple reason why I've been switching out of the Roach Ravager style that I have played ever since Legacy of the Void came out is because of the patch that is going to be released in the, hopefully nearby future. As you may be aware, Blizzard is planning on making a whole lot of changes to Zerg, Terran, and Protoss, and one of the things that I realized is that Roach Ravager just on the whole seems to be getting nerfed, whereas Mutaling Bane, in particular the Baneling, seems to be getting stronger. Now obviously we don't know whether or not it's actually going to go live as it is right now, and there's more than likely going to be minor changes that may very well make Roach Ravager a little bit more powerful again, but long story short, I've been trying to up my Mutaling Bane style instead, and this is something that I used to play a heck of a lot back in the day, but nowadays I've just been playing a lot of Roach Ravager and I figured it was about time for a change. And on top of that, after watching a lot of the Korean tournaments, I realized that a lot of the Koreans are also playing a Mutalisk Zergling Baneling based style. Now, I'm not gonna lie, in particular when I first started playing it, I probably lost like the first, 20 matches or so, just because I was making some pretty minor mistakes and they immediately cost you the game. But I feel like in particular over the last couple of days, I've been making some really solid progress, and I haven't really lost all too many Zerg vs Terrans ever since. It took a little bit of time for things to start clicking, but I feel like right now we're in a pretty good spot, and hopefully I'm gonna be able to explain to you the style a little bit better by also being able to show you right here in the game. So the general strategy that I'm playing right now is still very similar to what it used to be at the beginning when I was playing very Roach Ravager heavy, and that is to get towards the Hive and get up to Ultralisk. Now instead of being safe against all of the Terran aggression by using Roaches and Ravagers, I'm gonna be using Mutalisks, Zergling, and Banelings, as well as Queens, a lot more aggressively. So one of the main changes that I will be making here is that I'm going to be switching around the army composition and therefore the drone timings and whatnot significantly. Now, I don't really want to lose any of my stuff here if I can at all avoid that. Queens are going to be coming out soon. Well, looks like I may lose one of them. That's fine. And I'm going to be sending the queens that I have right now down towards the low ground as well. Oh, man. Get him, queen. He's actually being really annoying with this. Anyhow, the first major change is the fact that I've got my Overlord speed already coming in. Overlord speed is a really important upgrade. Pretty much all of the pro gamers are right now getting it. And instead of getting up to 4 queens right from the beginning, I'm gonna be getting that one and use that to decide the build that I want to be going for. So, depending on what I scout with my Overlord very shortly, and I'll go over what I'm looking for in just a second too. But depending on what I scout, I'm gonna be changing up the build that I'm going for. So, oh, there we go. Third base going down. So now that Overlord speed is done, I'm gonna be flying in this dude into the opponent's main. Now, I don't really want to lose it for obvious reasons, but here's what I'm looking for. Okay, so this is the most standard out of standard strategies for Terran. Here's what he's going for, okay? He's gonna go for the double meta effect drop at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Calling it right now. Now, this is part of the meta, and this is just something that is very common, I suppose. But either way, I'm gonna be preparing for this in advance. And the way I'm gonna do so is by getting my double evolution chambers. I'm gonna be going for the double Zergling upgrades right now, but until 4 minutes and 30 seconds, I am exclusively going to be droning. So I'm not really making any additional units right now until 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So notice I'm not going to be getting any kind of, super fast additional tech. I'm not going to tech up towards a hive or a lair just yet. I'm not going to be getting my Baneling nest just yet. Just purely focusing on these Zergling upgrades. Now, would I have seen a more tech-heavy style from the Terran here? I would have definitely chosen to go for a little bit more tech myself as well, such as the lair and the Baneling nest. But first and foremost here, I'm making sure that I'm getting my drones up. Now, I'm droning right until about, right about 4:30. At that point, I'm going to start making a lot of stuff again. So for a little bit right here, I've already been making units once again. And what I'm going to use here for the early game defense is going to be a couple of units. Zerglings, Queens, as well as Spore Crawlers. So I'm going to be putting down Spore Crawlers in my different bases. I do have that those rocks knocked down right now. But until 4:30, I've been making exclusively workers, and now I'm going to be making exclusively units as well. So I'm remaking a lot of the queens, I'm adding on a lot of extra ones here as well, and I know he's going to be dropping very soon. And on this particular map, I'm going to expect him to come right over here. I'm going to be getting my Baneling nest here, just because I can, and I may as well. Actually, let me put down a Crypt Tumor there too. But look at that, my opponent is already here. Now, did run a couple of lings there to their death, that was a little silly. But all things considered, I think I'm going to be okay here. I've got a lot of stuff here, and my queens are waddling over. So, I'm going to try and target fire down the, you know, medevac with my, it's actually still going after that, wow. I'm gonna try and target fire down the medevac with my queens, and the rest of my Zerglings are going to be able to deal with the aggression just fine. Now, here's the most important part of this strategy, and that is when you want to decide if you want to continue droning up once again. And that's really tough. There is no clean-cut rule for that. I think right now I've got enough to defend against anything, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do right now as well. Droning up once again. Okay. Now, the next point where we're going to be droning for is going to be until we have a lair done. Or actually, I already got that one on the way, of course. And I want to be getting the full saturation on the 3 bases. So I'm staying safe here with my Mutalisks, Zerglings, and Banelings. And once again, I'm really not moving across the map all too aggressively either. Now, this is maybe one of the things I want to be introducing a little bit more. So, you know, maybe go for some Zergling run-bys as well and try and do some damage that way. But +1 is done. I've got a lot of queens out. As you can see, my creep spread is looking pretty reasonable as well. Gonna be going for the Baneling speed here. Taking a macro hatchery now that my lair is done. And as soon as I can afford it, I'm gonna go ahead and put up the Spire as well. So notice, right? Completely different than the Roach Ravager style that I used to play. Now, I'm gonna have a quick little peek here. Not seeing a whole lot yet as far as the 3rd base goes from my opponent. So I gotta be careful that I don't... Well, maybe he's actually going for it right now. I gotta be careful that I don't, like, overmake, you know, the amount of stuff that I have either. Actually gonna be moving this Overlord over just to have a look exactly at what is going on. And we'll get the Spire here as well. Okay, so now that I've got 3 base saturation, I've got a lot of creep spread going on, and I've got, you know, a pretty reasonable economy here as well. There we go, my opponent did indeed take that 3rd. I am going to be allowed to take my 4th base now as well. Okay. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that this is significantly more difficult to play, and I accidentally blew one of my Banelings up. That's not too big of a deal. But this is significantly more difficult to play than the Zergling Roach Ravager type of style into Ultras. This is significantly more difficult as there's so many things to control and so many, you know, so many variables I'm supposed to keep in mind. Also gonna be, you know, throwing up my infestation pit right now, and I really want to try and get my, you know, my army here all grouped up together so I can, you know, defend against incoming aggression. Now, Spire is about to finish up. That's pretty good for me to have. Gotta make sure that I've got some reasonable injects going on all of the bases as well. And I'm gonna send one of the queens over towards that new base. And keep up the creep spread. Keep up the creep spread. So I do want to still tack up towards the hive, but I'm not doing it nearly as quickly. Now, I see that my opponent is gonna move across right now. I see movement right here on the minimap. I'm adding on as much as I can. Actually, just hit a minor supply block. That is unfortunate, but I'm just gonna add on more Banelings then. Should be able to deal with the incoming aggression still just fine. And one thing that I do want to try and obtain here as well is a bit of a surround. I'm assuming that he's gonna be pushing towards my 4th. Maybe that's a wrong assumption to make, however. There we go. Adding on as much stuff as I possibly can right now. And really trying to, you know, maximize the amount of units that I'm getting right now. So notice the creep spread here is immensely important. I haven't really done any more workers than the 3 bases. I'm really trying to keep an eye out on where my opponent is going to be engaging at next. Looks like he's going to be headed towards my 4th base after all. But he's scared of my creep as well. And you know what? I think right now I can go ahead and get my, you know, my hive tech coming in. So notice I set up an engagement here, right? I set up an engagement. I want him to come on creep. I do not want to engage him off creep if I can at all avoid that. Now, of course, this may be a little tricky. And you know what? I'm actually just going to go. I've got a lot of stuff here. And I'm going to use my Mutalisk here to target fire down the medevacs while using all of my Zerglings for the aggression. And now I'm going to counter. So notice I'm playing defensive all this time. And now that I've got a very massive army, that is when I'm going to be going for the offensive. Now, I could very well be finishing off the game here, and I would totally be okay with that. Not particularly opposed to getting some free ladder points, right? There we do see the switch towards the Liberator style there. That's fine. Gonna let my Banelings come through. But I've already got my own hive on the way, so I don't need to go all in here. Now, I am definitely going to do as much damage as I possibly can, because I am still planning to transition towards ultras here in the later stages of the match. But all things considered, this is looking pretty solid for us already. Gotta target fire down those Liberators. Gotta be careful, because that Liberator switch also 100% standard. Really nothing, nothing surprising there at all. Doing as much damage as I possibly can right now to his economy. But I think we're gonna have to run back home here in just a second. Reason for that is because I'm not closing out the game right now, and I'm not really in a rush for that either. Not really for a rush for that either. So I'm gonna be going back home with the units that I've got left over. I know that I've done a lot of damage to his economy, and now I can start considering to drone up that fort base as well. And in fact, I'm gonna be moving some of the workers from my other bases over here, just because they're gonna be running shortly, or they're gonna be running dry very shortly. So Ultra Cavern is on the way. Gonna be going for a couple of Corruptors here as soon as I can too. But notice, right? This is completely different than the style that I used to play, and yet it's very similar. Yet it's very similar to the Roach Ravager. We're just playing a more mobile style, and while it's more difficult to execute, I think in the end, if I manage to master it a little bit better, I'm gonna be in a good I'm gonna be in a good position. Now, my opponent is asking as well, what do you recommend against this playstyle? And honestly, I'm pretty sure that if you play this really well as a Zerg player, it's extremely difficult for a Terran to stop this kind of, you know, onslaught. Because I've just been like a sponge, you know, that's sort of how I like to look at it. I'm just sort of like playing like a sponge here, where I'm holding all of the aggression from my opponent without really any kind of, you know, damage taken here in the early stages of the game. Now, as far as what my opponent should be doing, probably focus on dealing early game damage. That's probably really what he is looking for here. Because if he is going to be in this scenario where at this point, you know, I am allowed to do whatever I want and I'm getting all my hive tech and I'm getting all of the units that I would like to go for, generally speaking, this match indeed is going to be over and my opponent is going to have a very hard time. And he says, you made a fuck ton of links. Well, it is correct. I made enough links after the 4-minute and 30-second mark to basically cover me until you know, I had the 3-base saturation out and until really getting that maxed out army. Now I'm really just setting up for the final engagement. I'm going for Ultralisk here. I'll just go ahead and grab myself another base just because I can. But with me maxed out already, I think this is going to be very difficult for my opponent to come back in. And obviously, since that creep spread, you know, from the queens that I gathered in the early stages of the game is still going strong too, we should be in a very powerful position to take this one with relative ease. If I really wanted to, I could even bring the queens over right now and go from there. Which would be, you know, just to rub insult, you know, to rub salt in the wound, rather. Insult to injury. I could use that to obviously get my Ultralisk, you know, a little bit more beefed up as well. But generally speaking, at this point in the game, it is practically over for my opponent. We're just waiting for his engagement right now. 3-3 is coming in. I'm gonna go for the Greater Spire as well, as that is one of the things that I've been focusing on quite a bunch. And, I mean, if I clean up his ground army, or his air-based army, I will just go ahead and continue onwards with my Ultra production. If it turns out that my opponent is going for, you know, a much more defensive style instead, and he's gonna sit back and, you know, he's gonna force me into Brute Lords, I'm gonna be a-okay with that as well. But the Swarm right now is moving. And while there is definitely, you know, a little bit of scarcity in the army composition right now, generally speaking, as long as I target fire down all of these Corruptors, I'm gonna be able to roll my way through this. To simply attack moving with the army that I have. And my opponent is forced to GG out. Now, one more thing before closing out this video. Would I recommend for you to start practicing this as well? And I would say if you are in Master League or above, I would highly recommend starting to practice at least a little bit of Mutaling Bane style. Just because it works out extremely nicely and the skill ceiling of it is significantly higher than that of the Roach Ravager strategy. Usually, if you're playing Roach Ravager, it's pretty difficult and a lot of it will come down, in particular in Master League, to like your fungal growth hits and all that. But if you are below in any of the lower leagues in StarCraft 2, I would highly recommend just simply sticking with Roach Ravager for now. A lot of the strategy that you will learn from playing that style will carry over to this just fine too. And, you know, depending on what happens in the next patch, you can always switch over then. And other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.